Wow. Thank you for being my handler. My throat is a little sore this morning. Thanks, Phil. Good morning and welcome to the Pacific West General Membership Meeting and Legal Panel. I'm Joyce Leonard, your 2017 president, and I just want to say a few words, if I might. We've had a fabulous, fantastic year at Pacific West, and I'm so very, very proud, serving over 12,000 plus members, over 30 plus cities, with some of the most fabulous staff, and I have just enjoyed and very honored and privileged to serve you as your president. But as they say, it's not one person, it takes a village. And my village is partially here. So I would like to acknowledge my board of directors, if you will please stand, your 2017 board of directors. And I'd also like to take privilege to congratulate two very special staff members that we have here this morning. And I would like for them to stand if they're not already. We celebrate our 20th anniversary this year. And it has been a spectacular time to be president and be part of this great association. And I would like you to help me congratulate and honor two staff members, Irene Agabon, Executive Assistant, and Lori Smith, Professional Standards Manager. Both of these fine ladies and friends of mine have been with our amazing association for also 20 years. I'd also like to honor, if they are here, Ann Pettijohn, past president of CAR, and those that know Jeff McIntosh, your current CAR president. I don't believe they're here, but I want to give them a shout out. Thank you. And the board of directors works really, really hard, so I can't acknowledge them enough for everything that they have done and the support this year. But there's also a few folks here that's brought to my attention, and along with the theme of 20-year anniversary, we have some special people in the room. These folks, that I'm going to name off in a second, served on the original founding board. That would be a founding member of this, again, a great association. Marcia Keeney, if you'll stand. Rick Violet. And Phil Schaefer. And I again want to acknowledge staff, and of course he's not in the room and he doesn't like to be acknowledged, so let me do it really fast. I've really enjoyed working with our CEO, Mr. Phil Hawkins. Give us a wave, Phil Hawkins. Thank you for all that you do. So with that, we have done a lot of outreach this year, reaching out to our brokers, our members. I've personally attended some caravans and met a lot of folks and really, really enjoyed it. The member touch has been great, the broker information, and we really, really value your membership. We have some of the lowest dues in the area and offer, I believe, some of the most outstanding services in education, advocacy, and again, our leadership is fabulous. So I would love for you to remember all the classes that we have and at the association. Remember to download the app. And of course, we have George in the back, our trainer, who will always come out to your offices. But we really value your membership and how important you are to the association. Are you looking for seats as well? Can you raise your hand if you have a seat next to you again for me? Thank you. Keep your hands up for one more minute. Thank you. Lastly, my last event as president, official event as president, I would like to acknowledge two board of directors that we honored this year, along with the other amazing things that we've accomplished as an association. Emeritus directors, directors emeritus, Glenn Hellier, if you'll stand. And Phil Jones. Thank you. Congratulations to both of you. At this time, again, my parting thoughts are it's been a privilege, a fantastic year, and I've really enjoyed the journey along with the group that has supported me and the amazing staff, as I mentioned. And it will truly be a highlight of my 38-year career. So it's been a joy, and you're in good hands next year with Barbara Betts, your president-elect. Stand up, Barbara. And with that, I would like to call Phil Schaefer to the stage. Thank you, Phil.
Okay, so before we get onto our speakers, a couple little things we need to take care of. First of all, as realtors, we are a patriotic group, and I know that we love our country that gives us the freedom to be able to do what we do every day. My wife and I went to China last year in November, and in China you can only own your property for 70 years and then it goes back to the government. So aren't you glad we don't have to deal with that here, and makes our life a little less complicated? So we're going to say the pledge to our great flag of our great country. If you'd all please rise and join with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, a few things. As a founding director, I couldn't be more proud of PWR today with the accomplishments and the things that we've done. Like Joyce mentioned, we have the lowest dues. Our surrounding associations are significantly higher. I think we give way better member service and benefits. You guys have lots of things like today. This is a free event. Is this pretty awesome? You get actually real food. One of the accomplishments I'm particularly proud of is our charity foundation and the work that we've done. We've had a charity foundation here. I think we started about 17 years ago. I have to double check the date, so don't quote me on that. And we've had a lot of great people volunteer and roll up their sleeves, our affiliates getting involved, and the big news there is the difference that we've been able to make in people's lives. This year we've given away all of our money for first-time buyers, and several of those are military families, veterans that we're helping. Not only are we creating transactions for our members, but we're actually making a difference in people's lives. We are down to the last $2,400 to give away, so if you have a first-time buyer that might qualify, you better hurry, because that money's going to go quick. But I'm really proud that we can make a difference in people's lives. One of the ways we do that is through raising funds, and we just had, a couple months ago, our 7th annual golf tournament. That was Glenn Hellier's idea to have a golf tournament, and it's turned out to be a pretty good idea. Imagine that from Glenn. Anyway, no, I'm just giving him a bad time. This year we raised over $36,000, and that all goes 100% straight into our foundation, which is managed by PWR for free. I mean, we're not paying to have a lot of overhead or things like that like a lot of charities do. So when you're donating money to the charity foundation, you can know that it's really going to help a first-time buyer. And with the affordability crisis in California, that's a big difference. Oh, sorry, I didn't know you guys couldn't hear me out there. I'm not the sound guy. I'm just, up here saying my bit. Anyway, we have another fundraiser coming up that is going to be a lot of fun. But before I tell you about that, I want to touch on one other thing. Another way, realtors are known for giving back to their communities. You guys roll up your sleeves. You're involved in your schools, your churches, your neighborhoods. I'm very proud of how giving the realtor community is. No secret that California's been hit really hard with the fires, especially up north, but even locally with the Canyon Fire. 2 of our PWR members lost their homes, Danny and Aaron Williamson, husband and wife, and they've got 3 kids. Their house burned to the ground, and they have nothing left there. There is a CAR disaster relief fund, and I'm not asking you to do something I haven't already done. I've given to this, and it goes statewide. We have a lot of CAR members, particularly up north, where the fires have been 10 times as big as they are here. So if your heart bleeds that way, you want to make a difference, you can go on the car.org main page, and there's a way to give. Likewise, NAR has a disaster relief fund, and with the hurricanes and floods and things that have been going around, somebody said to me yesterday, it feels like Armageddon, and I have to agree with that. It's kind of a crazy world that we're living in today. So what we want to do is make it a little bit better if we can, and one way you can help is our last event of the year is a week from today. The Charity Foundation has flyers and a table out front, and we host, how many years have we done this? Where's Lelaine? I think this is like 5, maybe years, or 6, something like that. It is one of the most fun things we do all year, and it's in the PWR parking lot in Anaheim at our Anaheim office. We have live music, we have unlimited beer and wine, we have food for $25. Now, where can you go for $25 on a Friday night and have that much fun? You get to just casually, socially be with other realtors, but it's not limited to realtors. Friends, family, neighbors, clients, a great place to bring your clients because it's a tremendous amount of fun. It is, in the fall, it's right before Halloween, so there'll be pumpkins. This year the theme is international, and we have 19 vendors that are all participating there. And they have really taken to heart this international theme. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a great way to thank our affiliates who are a lot of our sponsors for being there, to just show up and to thank them. But again, $25. Now, you don't have to buy your tickets in advance. In fact, if you wait and buy them that day, the Charity Foundation makes more money because we charge you $35 at the door. And every year, half the people just pay at the door. So God bless you all for doing that. But we'd love to have 500 people show up at this. And when I look in this room, wouldn't it be great if everybody that's here came to that and had a lot of fun next Friday night? So it's a week from tonight. The hours starts at 5:30. It's in the PWR parking lot. There's on-grade parking in the parking lot adjacent to us. If you've been to the PWR office, you turn in where the signal is and just follow that and park in there and then walk around. And I guarantee it will be the most fun thing that you do all fall. Invite friends, invite clients, invite somebody to come with you, somebody from your office, and you will not regret it. And then we're just raising more money so we can help more people again next year and be part of that give back cycle. So thank you all very much for your generosity this year to the Charity Foundation. Without you, we couldn't do what we're doing, and we really, really appreciate everybody that's volunteered, that's served on our board, that's given $10 or $100 or more. And you can, if you want to just make a donation today, we've got the table out in the back. We'll always take your money. So, but we'd like to give you some fun in return for it. Anyway, with that, I'm going to turn over to the next person. That's is Joyce is coming back up.
Thank you, Phil. You actually spoke longer than I did.
I told you I'd be under 20 minutes.
Thank you, Phil, for all that you do. Our Charity Foundation, we're very, very proud of that. And I was remiss in acknowledging all of our past presidents of PWR. So I don't want to ask everyone to stand, but if you would, past presidents of PWR, for all of your hard work and all of the years that led us to this point, please stand. I look out at my friends, and we truly are where we're at today because of this fine group that I almost failed to introduce. At this time, it is a great privilege for me to introduce a good friend of ours, a realtor member of PWR, and a champion of realtor issues. That would be housing-related issues. And that would be issues in the state and now the federal. So I would like to introduce a very special person that we're fortunate to have here today, U.S. Representative Congressman Lou Correa.
Thank you, Joyce. And again, I want to thank all of you here for your friendship, counsel, and support over the years. And also want to say to all of you here that you have a great operation, great representatives in Sacramento when it comes to addressing the issues of housing affordability and making sure that this industry continues to be that economic engine that creates so many jobs here in California. I'm Congressman Lou Correa, former realtor myself, former loan agent, you name it, I've done it. You know what that's called? It's called survival. And sometimes that's what you got to do to feed the kids and to take care of the family. And that's what I've done throughout my life. I got stuck in government and I actually got hooked on it, and that's why I've been here for a while now. But when I was in the State Assembly and the State Senate, had a great relationship with the California Association of Realtors, PWR, which I'm a member of, been a member for a number of years. And I have to tell you, these folks here do a really good job for you when it comes to advocating. You know, a lot of my former colleagues in Sacramento, they're good people. They want to do good things, and sometimes we need to do good things that cost money, and they look at things like point of transaction. A good place to put on a fee or something there, which is going to add to the cost of the transaction. And I'll tell you, your folks go to Sacramento. They used to go lobby me, and when I was in the Senate, we'd have great discussions, and a couple of times they almost got away. They almost got those bills through. And I remember standing on the Senate floor, and then my staff would say, hey, your guys from PWR, guys and gals, are out there in the hallway. They want to talk to you. I think we're a couple of votes away from, stopping this bill. And I'd go out and talk to these guys and gals, and they'd say, Lou, help us. And no, you got to help yourself. So I said, I have an idea. So what I started doing was pulling senators off the Senate floor to come off and talk to these folks one-on-one. I said, you guys got to make the case. You guys got to stop these bills. And you know what? It worked. We scored 2 out of 2, 100% on some of those bills. And it was because of their talk. Now I know how they close deals. They know how to talk. And so that's the kind of representation you have here from Pacific West Association of Realtors. And as we move forward, the stakes are going to get higher and more challenging. And so you need to make sure that you have strong representation and that you're ready to take on those fights locally, state, and at the federal level. You look at the news today and you say, my God, Washington is dysfunctional, D versus R versus D, a lot. It's a big food fight in many ways. But I can tell you, it's also a place where we get things done. The press just doesn't pick up on that stuff because it's kind of boring things. I've always been a person that's worked very well with my Republican colleagues. And I ran on a platform of going to Washington to work across the aisle and to work with anybody who wants to work with me to make the life of Americans better. That's my job. I don't get paid to be partisan. I get paid to go and try to fix problems for my constituents. That's what I've done. So, when I was in Sacramento, I did well. I got myself to a higher level, and then I go to Congress, and I'm the new freshman, right? At my age, I'm a freshman. Running around, people pushing me around. I can't find the bathrooms. People telling me lies, and I can't figure out it's a lie. Somebody's joshing me around. So, I got to figure, how do I make friends real fast? So, I'm raising 4 kids that are in college right now. I got a family, and I get to Washington, and I see the rents are real expensive. It's like $2,000 to $3,000 for little holes in the wall. And I look around, and I see that all these, mostly Republicans, a few Democrats, they all live in their offices. Newt Gingrich started this tradition, and oh, that's interesting, living in your office. And I looked more and more into it. I said, oh, I can save $2,000 or $3,000. I don't have to commute. Don't have to worry about the snow or the heat and all that. And you know what? Just go down to what they do there. You don't have showers and stuff in your office, but we have a gym downstairs. And so I found out that, you know what? You live in your office, you go down to the gym, shave, shower, and you're back to work. And you say, wow, that's kind of yucky. Actually, 2 or 3 ladies do it as well. So the neat thing, though, is you make friends real fast. You know, I got a guy from Oklahoma, former MMA wrestler, Mark Wayne has become a very good friend of mine. The speaker, Ryan, does the same thing. He's got this, what is it, PX20 or PX80? What is that called? Nice. Thank you. I knew one of those numbers. You got to see the guy working out in the morning. It's like, oh my God, dude, you're in shape. And you get to know people. And it's like high school. You guys remember gyms in high school? Big public showers, and you shave and shower. You got to hold a towel, and you got to go, take the shower. You got to wait. And then one of my Republican friends said, "Hey, Lou, don't wait in line. Just jump in with one of those guys in the same stall. They won't bother to think twice about it, Lou." I said, "Are you sure?" He said, "Yeah, just jump in with one of the guys." I think he was lying to me. So, you make friends. It's all good, and there's a lot of talk, and you discuss, a little bit of public policy, but for the most part, what I wanted to do was get to Washington, get to make friends, and get to know what drives people. And that's what is happening. I'm making friends. I'm figuring out where we're going. And it's important because, I don't have a baseline to compare it to, but I understand that right now is like the most exciting, if I can use that word, exciting time in Washington in recent memory. A lot of things are going on. You read about them, and most of it is true. We've got big issues we're dealing with, tax reform, debt ceiling, and our debt is a big issue. It's a big issue. In 10 years, our second largest expenditure is going to be interest on our national debt. And we got tax reform. I'll talk to you a little bit about that. We have immigration reform. We have regulation. All these big mega things that were North Korea, okay, the Middle East. Now all of a sudden it's Africa. We have troops around like 70 countries. I have a lot of stuff going on. And we're supposed to do most of it by December. Okay. Now, I can tell you that some of the big issues that will probably take place will happen are tax reform. Who wants lower taxes? Hey, yeah. But who pays for the deficit that the lower taxes cause? The big issue right now that's being addressed, I don't have much time to talk, so the big thing we're looking at, the corporate tax rate, reducing it from mid-30s down to the lower 20%. And the argument there is, by doing so, we're going to get the Googles, the high-tech firms that have parked all their profits offshore because the tax rates are lower to bring the money back to the U.S., and that'll create economic stimulus. We'll do a bunch of stuff, and that'll create jobs, so on and so forth. Great theory. But as it causes a deficit, huge deficit, where do you make that up? And that's the food fight we're having. Because I'll tell you, my Republican colleagues, the Freedom Caucus, they're very hawkish on deficits. And they have a point. Who's going to pay for this? And we're going to have to make some very, very hard decisions very soon. Some of them will affect California. Some of the things on the table, tax deductibility of your local taxes, which is going to hit us in California really hard. What about 1031 exchanges? Do those all of a sudden go away? Is there a limit on how much interest you can deduct from your mortgage, interest on your taxes? Those are things that squarely hit this industry. Now, you're one of many. But if we're talking about economic activity, job creation, I got to say, let's pull back a little bit and talk about what areas of our economy do we have that really create good jobs? Economic engines, multiplier effect. You buy, sell a house, you buy a chunk of real estate or sell it, you get a bunch of other people employed in that, right? From the town, from the, title to the mortgage. You got to fix that puppy up. You got to do this, that. That's a lot of economic activity. And all I'm saying is, as we look at bringing back all these revenues from offshore, as we look at creating something exciting, let's not forget that which we have already in our economy, which is a lot of economic activity generated from the real estate industry. And your voice has to be really loud, because the other voices are really loud as well. And that's where the food fight starts. That is where your voices collectively are going to signal to the legislature, don't go here and don't go here. And like I said, it's about 2 to 3 months that we're talking about. And, the deals are made in areas that I don't see, but you hear a lot of things that are going on. And if there's a message I would leave with you today, it's don't put your guard down. Right now is the time to step up and be real loud and vocal. You have this thing called PACs, political action committees. You have these things that are called telephones. You have these folks that are called your federal representatives. Right now is the time for you to get up and call your local representative. Send them a letter. Don't do a pre-printed letter and sign at the bottom. Those I look at, I throw away. If you write me a handwritten letter, I'm going to say this person really took time to write this letter. This person really cares about the issue. Give to your PACs. Make your voice loud and clear, because right now is when these issues are being addressed. And remember something, you're not going to get a second shot at this tax reform. In California, workers' comp reform happens once every 10 years. You know why? Because it's really hard to do. Tax reform at the federal level happens once every 20 to 30 years. So this thing gets away from you right now, you probably won't get another shot for another 20 years. So you're in a position right now to really make public policy by calling your representatives like me and say, hey, and there's a couple of my neighbors here, saying, hey, this is what we want, this is what we need to do, this is where my job, comes from. A little while ago, you talked about all the good things you're doing for veterans. You know what I think the best thing we can do for veterans? Give them a good paying job. Yeah. That's the best thing you can do for veterans. I sit on Veterans Affairs in Washington, and when I talk to those generals, they say, Lou, you can, great stuff, just give them a job. When they come back stateside, give them a job. And that's what this industry is about, giving people the ability to earn a living. Let me conclude by thanking all of you for your support over the years. I'm a realtor, I'm also a lawyer, I'm also a former banker. I have a little spin than most others electeds. I come from a financial sector. So I look at the world a little bit different. But at the end of the day, if you look at the American dream, it's the American dream. Can you afford to buy a house? In my district right now, houses are the average is about $730,000. It's horrible, horrible. We got to make sure we continue to focus on what creates jobs. Housing sector, real estate sector, major portion of our economy. Do not let these conceptual, it's going to create jobs, tear this industry down. One of the fights I'm having with my other colleagues, I'm not concluding yet, but I'm going off on a tangent, is as we start to look at bringing those revenues from offshore back here. How do you incentivize the private sector to take that money and invest in brick and mortar? How do you tell a private institution you can't do a stock buyback? You can't pay dividends with that money. It's going to be really hard to make that jump. But I'll tell you, how do you tell folks in the real estate sector to hire people to invest in brick and mortar? Simple. You keep this industry healthy and alive. And we have to make sure that we are sure that in Washington, what we do keeps this industry healthy, alive, and growing. So join me in conclusion. I'm going to say, join me, join PWR, National Association of Real Estate, and let's make sure what happens in Washington is good public policy. Thank you very much, and thank you everybody for being here today with you. Oh, please. Is this going to cost me a first round or what?
Thank you very much, Representative, for all that you do. We appreciate you so much. Truly a realtor champion, as you can tell. At this time, I'd like to introduce our legal panel. Some great information for you this morning. First, to my far right is Ed Zorn, legal, let me say it exactly right, Vice President and General Counsel for CRMLS. So he can answer your hard questions. And in the middle is John Giardinelli of the Giardinelli Law Group, also addressing us with some good information this morning. And last, before I turn the microphone over to him, we're very, very privileged and honored to have with us today the Commissioner of the Bureau of Real Estate, Wayne Bell. So with that, I will turn it over today to the panel and start with Wayne Bell.
Up there or here, does it matter?
Doesn't matter.
I'll tell you what.
However you want to do it.
I'll stand up first. Thank you very much, and thank you, everyone. I really want to express my appreciation to your association for the invitation. I've known John Giardinelli for a long time. I know a lot of your members, and I want to thank you for your support, for your engagement, and we've had a great relationship since I've been commissioner, so I'm glad to be here. Interestingly, I looked at the agenda, and I have that I'm supposed to talk about teams, 2018 advertising guidelines, and other topics. I typically don't talk about teams or advertising guidelines. Those are the things that I get questioned about. And I was thinking last night, I stayed up in West Los Angeles with my brother, and that's why I was here a little late. There were 3 accidents on the freeway as I was driving down this morning. What keeps you up at night versus what keeps me up at night? I would love to have that discussion. I can tell you what keeps me up at night are things such as deed fraud. The other day I got a call, and we were talking about I heard someone mention the fires in Northern California and down here. I got a call from a reporter asking what would prevent people from rent price gouging, and the answer is Section 396 of the Penal Code. And so I wrote an alert on that the same day, talked with the Attorney General's office, and we're seeing rental price gouging in the wine country area right now, and it's really just awful. So that keeps me up. Deed fraud, lawsuits against the Bureau of Real Estate, shortages in trust fund accounts, non-reporting of broker escrow activity by people who are supposed to report to us. And then when we get reports on the broker escrow activity, there's no mention of any bank account. So that kind of makes us a little uncomfortable. Salespeople acting as brokers, whether through teams without broker supervision or acting as property managers without any broker knowledge or supervision. And the other thing that now is going to keep me up, it's a good thing, but it's going to keep me up, is our conversion to the Department of Real Estate. And I want to thank all of you for your support in bringing us back to a department level. So thank you. And without going into much detail, I know you've heard some of this from the California Association of Realtors and others. When we became a bureau back in 2013, the concept was that we'd be more efficient, more effective, and it'd be a cost savings. Well, I can tell you there was no efficiency whatsoever. There was no effectiveness in dealing with the Department of Consumer Affairs. And I'm not trying to be critical here. I'm just telling you it's a very large bureaucracy. It's very cumbersome. And then they charge a pro rata based on the size of the entity. And so this year, the pro rata is $5.6 million. They determined that the cost to operate us would be 1.2. So there's $4.4 million of your money, of our money, that is going to the Department of Consumer Affairs for non-real estate related purposes. And that has happened since 2013. So the fact that we're going to be a department again is a great thing. We're going to have to beef up and hire staff. We need human resources staff, we need fiscal services staff, we're going to have a ledge person, but their HR staff, their fiscal staff, they oversee about 40 boards, bureaus, and entities, and so we just compete for their assistance, and it's a long, hard process, so I'm very, very pleased that we're going to be a department again. The other thing I wanted to talk about, because I heard Lou Correa mention it, I heard someone else mention it, is your support of housing in California. The discussion is one that has to continue all the time. In fact, if I had my way, there would be a housing agency and there would be a focus on housing day in and day out, because housing is not a standalone issue. It is connected to and interrelated with family stability, economic well-being. There's an impact on transportation infrastructure, and it's important as an economic driver, as Congressman Correa mentioned. And your support of the housing bills was phenomenal. It helped get through SB 2, and there were about 15 bills. The thing that is the saddest about housing for those of us who grew up in California is we remember a time where everybody could afford a home. If you worked hard, you could get a home, you raised your kids there, and now we hear about people who say it's unaffordable. I can't live in California, I'm going to leave. And we read stories in Sacramento constantly about areas in California where, while the parents live there and they plan to stay, the kids are moving out of the state because they just cannot afford to stay. And so if we can't provide homes for children and grandchildren, there's something wrong with the state. And it's not a problem that's caused by economics, it's a problem caused by failure to focus, and it's a failure of government to focus and really take action here. So I thank you for keeping the focus on that. Now, I will have a discussion when we sit down to the legal panel about teams, if you'd like to discuss that, advertising guidelines, and things like that. The thing I want to say about teams, first and foremost, is teams are, it's just a fact. They're there. They've been there for a long, long time. Some brokerages operate using teams. Even if we wanted to, we couldn't put the genie back into the bottle. So the question is how we could construct something that works for the real estate industry and works for us and the public. And so what we've done in talking about teams and working on the legislation is to say you can have salesperson teams, but the salespersons who are involved need to be on display for the public, so that one of the licensees has to have their surname there, there has to be an ID number, and then, importantly, there has to be the broker included along with the name of the team. And that's a California state statute now, as you know, and it's also part of the NAR rules. If you look at the Code of Ethics, it's right there. In fact, recently, I don't know if you read this, there was an interesting piece in the National Association of Realtors, I think it's called Realtor Magazine, and it says no team is an island. And it's a good little piece because it's a reminder that a salesperson team cannot operate independently. And what we say to salespeople, and I hear this all the time too, John, I hear salespeople say, well, we know more than our broker. And I say, well, that's all well and good. That's too bad, actually, but but the bottom line is, unless you become a broker, you can't operate like a broker. You can't act like a broker. You can work under the supervision, under the oversight of a broker. The broker has to be responsible for your advertising. The broker has to know what you're doing. And so we think that with the current legislation, with the rules in place, that it will be better. Now, can we enforce everything? The answer is no. And that's because our enforcement staff is relatively small. Al and I had a discussion earlier, and it was interesting. We talked about signage. We don't have sign police. We have about 60 people statewide who do enforcement. 60 people statewide. And I don't know if you know the licensee numbers. We've issued over 417,000 licenses to individuals. And that does not include corporations, and that does not include the people who are in an expired status who have the right to renew their license. So and I want to say this is actually, I said, well, you can send us a picture of the sign, but I think if all we got were pictures of signs, we couldn't open any other mail. I have some regular email correspondents who send me pictures of signs almost every day. And I send them over to enforcement, and enforcement says, please don't send us these pictures. And what we need to do, though, is work together to have people follow the rules. We really do. The industry gets discredited when the rules aren't followed. The salespeople don't follow the rules. The brokers don't follow the rules. We have to all work together to make certain that we do the best we can to elevate the profession, to play by the rules. And on the signage issue, when people say, well, how come you can't enforce all these violations? We don't know every transaction that occurs in the state. It's interesting, there was a lawsuit against the Bureau of Real Estate, and fortunately it was dismissed, and it's because the law is on our side. But the plaintiff was upset because he lost money in some transactions and felt that we should have known about these transactions. And it's fascinating how people actually think that somehow we would know what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, whether you're a transactional person, whether you're doing broker-controlled escrows, whether you're doing financing, that we're going to know who you're talking with, what you're saying, if everything you're saying is correct, whether you're doing the proper disclosures. Well, the case law says that we can't know that, we don't know that, and obviously we're a licensing agency. And what I've told them, I told the judge, I told everyone else, I can't believe that the medical board could possibly know what every doctor is doing in every surgery, or the dental board would know when someone's giving you a filling. And it's just quite amazing that people think that we're supposed to know that. Now, on the other hand, I do want to say we're going to do everything we can when we see a violation to cite that violation and make certain that it's part of any other problems that we see in connection with an audit with regard to an investigation. But similarly, like the Highway Patrol Commissioner who drives down the street and everybody passes the Highway Patrol Commissioner at 75, 80, 90, 100 miles an hour, that person knows that people are not following the speed law. But when someone gets pulled over, they get cited for speeding, they get cited for whatever other issues there are. So I will talk about teams, I will talk about advertising guidelines, first point of contact, but I always fall back on this, especially with lawyers. I always say, read the law. And the law is actually very clear. And John can tell you what the law is. And Ed can tell you what the law is. And wherever I go now, I see Ed, by the way. I saw Ed last week. I think Ed was the last person I saw in San Diego as I left. The other thing that I just want to say is, because the industry is so large, because it's statewide in scope, and because I want to make it better, I want to improve it for you, and I want you to work with me to help enhance it as well, I ask that when you see violations that are serious, that go beyond an ethics violation that you can handle at your local level, that you do send it to me, you send it to the Bureau, and as of July 1, 2018, the department, because we do need to see those violations. We do need to start an investigation. We do need to take action against those who violate the law. But we don't know what happens in the field unless you tell us what happens in the field. Because we sit in our office and we are reactive. We look at the complaints that come in. And recently, when we were looking at our caseloads, the caseloads have actually gone down. And the reason for that is because it's always a pendulum. When the market gets slowed, or when the market slows down, we see many more complaints and a lot of fraud complaints. When the market gets good, we see fewer complaints. So I want to make certain that we don't have anyone sitting in the office without anything to do. So I have issued an order up there that we should have everyone working on a certain number of cases as a goal, and it's a balance of complaints coming through the door. And if we don't have complaints, I want them looking at people who have restricted licenses, starting with restricted brokers who have nobody overseeing them. And it's all triage, and it's all based on risk. So if we have a restricted broker who got a restriction because they had a bar fight 3 years ago, I'm not so concerned about that. But if we have a restricted broker who's restricted because they converted funds or they had shortages time after time after time, I want our folks to go visit that broker. And I want our folks to visit salespeople who have restrictions to make certain the brokers are overseeing those folks, and that if there are conditions which preclude a salesperson from engaging in certain activity, that they're not engaged in that activity. The other thing is, I've asked them to go out and look at folks we've issued bar orders to make certain they're not violating that, or we've done DNR orders to make certain that they're not continuing to violate those DNR orders. And I myself have gone out, I've met with lots of prosecutors all over the state, so we can have an effective working relationship, a collaboration to try to take people off of our roles who violate the law, who don't care about the law, who don't care about you, who don't care about the industry, and they're just trying to take advantage of consumers. But my own view, and I know I've shared this with some of you in the past, is we have no beef with people who are endeavoring to comply with the law. We want people to comply. We want to work with you. We want to work with John. We want to work with your association and CAR in making certain that people understand the law, comply with the law, and the folks that we want to go after, and I know the folks you want us to go after, are the ones who continue to violate the law, to defy the rules of the National Association of Realtors. And it's interesting, there are people who practice, as you might know, who are not members of the Realtors Association. When I talk with them, I say, you know what, grab the National Association of Realtors ethics rules. They're good things to follow. You ought to look at them. And if you don't want to follow those rules, which you really should, read our law, because you have to follow that. And many of our laws, they are they're collaborative. They sort of mirror, they sort of pattern the ethics rules. And so I appreciate the ethics rules. I always tell people to look at those first, the members of the Realtors Association. Ask realtors to file complaints if you see violations of those ethics rules. and then to contact us if you see violations of the real estate law, because we really do need to work together. We do need to make the industry as great as it can be. And I've really always enjoyed my association with everyone I've spoken with from the Realtors Association. And so with that, I'm going to sit down and we'll continue with the program, and I'll be able to answer any questions, or at least I'll try to answer any questions that you throw at me in a bit. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Bell. Appreciate all that you do for us in the real estate industry as well. Again, my name's Edward Zorn. I'm Vice President, General Counsel of CRMLS. Who signed into CRMLS in the last 30 days? Just wanted to know what kind of audience I was dealing with. Thank you. I'm going to echo a little bit in support of what Commissioner Bell talked about. I have the privilege of operating the compliance department for CRMLS, and I'd like to give you some numbers of what's been happening. Currently, we're averaging about 45,000 active listings in the system. I'm going to use some numbers for the first 9 months. So these numbers are from January of this year up through the end of September. And our department has handled 42,334 reported violations. So just like the commissioner is asking you to contact the commissioner if there are problems with someone violating the real estate law, we rely on you to watch over what's in the MLS. It's your job to make sure the MLS is accurate. And so we really encourage you to drop down at the bottom of those listings and click that blue link, and that goes to our compliance department. Now, a lot of people think with 42,000 violations, that means we're making a load of money, right? That's not why we have violations, okay? Our goal is to keep the information in the MLS accurate, right? Your worst nightmare is walking into a listing presentation, sitting down at a kitchen table, and talking through your CMA, and to your horror, when you're talking about a $700,000 sale down the street, you never want to hear your potential client tell you, I know Fred and Betty down the street, and that house didn't sell for $700, it sold for $750. Why is your information wrong? Right? Worst nightmare can happen. That's what the compliance department is for, is to make sure when you're giving advice to buyers and sellers, that advice and that information you're providing is accurate. So about 16% of all of the violations that get reported to us, we conduct a full investigation of, and we determine there actually was no violation. The listing agent didn't do anything wrong. What we really try to do is send out courtesy notices. So if you get an email from CRMLS that says action required ! Don't call us complaining, do what it says, okay? We give you 2 business days to fix what we've identified as a problem. If you fix it in 2 days, nothing happens to you. There's no citation issued, right? Because it's our incentive to try to make sure the database is accurate, and we're proud to report that over 25,000 of those reported violations got fixed in 2 days. So 60% of what gets reported to us gets fixed right away. We do issue citations. We had about 8,000 of those. But 6,780 of those were warnings. So you get 2 warnings a year, okay? So we issued 1,376 violations against 42,000 reported issues. That is 3.25%. That's what our fine rate is. So you guys are only getting fined at a rate of 3.25%. We're not in it for the money. We want the information to be accurate. Something interesting, though, about that group of fines, almost everybody in that group has gotten more than 2. So that group is only like 670 agents. You know, so let's try to get rid of those repeaters if we can. So a couple other quick issues I just want to bring to your attention from the MLS's perspective, some things that are happening moving out in the future, is we have some new products and opportunities coming out for you to better serve your customers. Starting at the end of November, maybe beginning of December, we're going to be rolling out a product as a member benefit to you called Remine, R-E-M-I-N-E. You may want to go to their website, remine.com, to check them out. It's basically a big data mining type of program. It's kind of like Realist on steroids, okay? Take some basic public information, tax type of information, combined with information from the MLS, and it provides all kinds of predictive analytics. It has a very good user interface, very easy to read and consume that information. Great for your clients and for you in maybe looking for some future business and opportunities. We're also very proud to announce that we've also approved bringing into CRMLS as a full member benefit Cloud MLX. Right now that's in our marketplace, so you would have to normally pay for that, but we're bringing it in probably towards the beginning of the year. It is a search engine that is, again, from W&R Studios. Anyone use Cloud CMA, Cloud Streams? So you know, again, their user interface, the usability of those products is very good, and they've made their own search platform. So it means instead of using Matrix, you could use Cloud MLX, and you can literally type in the bar, I want a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house in Anaheim, less than 2,000 square feet, and just write it in, and all the houses start popping up on the map. It has tags, has communication abilities. When you combine it with Cloud Streams, there's some great communication opportunities. These guys really know what they're doing from a technology standpoint, especially if you have maybe some newer agents, maybe that don't have the gray hair or missing hair like me yet. This is kind of how they like to interact with technology, so it's moving in a really great direction. Great news is this company is also developing a new ad edit module. So we're hoping in the summertime, we'll have a new way for you to actually input listings in this more technologically sophisticated way into the MLS and rolling it out as a front end. We are also bringing back Google Street View, right? I know that's a big, just so you know how that happened, we had that at no cost for like 3 years, and then they hit us with a big bill. And so the board has decided, based on input from you, that we're going to go ahead and pay that bill and bring that back to you as a member benefit. So those are some things happening in the MLS. Just the last thing I would like to leave with is a reminder on copyright issues. Anyone here use professional photography? Okay, if you use professional photography, please make sure you are looking at those licensing agreements. I have started to see many photographers limiting the license they give you to use the photograph. They will say you can put it in the MLS. Then they put a comma in and says, as long as you're marketing the property for sale. What that means is once it actually sells or it expires, you no longer have the license to use that photograph. That means that photograph cannot be in the MLS. Okay, if you have that limitation in a license, you may not put a photograph from that photographer in the MLS. If you have questions, you can send me those contracts. I know there's a company called Tour Factory that has actually entered into a separate agreement with CRMLS, giving us all of the licensing rights we need, so I know their photographers are good to go. Just in case you make a mistake on this issue and you actually use photographs without the proper copyright protection, someone will whip out your calculator on your phone. Minimum fine for a copyright violation is $750. Multiply that times 20, right? Because most of you put at least 20 pictures in. What number is that? Anyone want to give me that number?
A lot.
Right? Yeah, you think that's a lot? We IDX out every listing to 17,000 broker websites. Hit that number times 17 grand. That's your minimum fine. I recommend we don't make a mistake on the copyright issues. Okay, they're big dollar, big ticket items, and we take those very seriously at the MLS. If we see a copyright infringement, we do not give you a warning, and it's an automatic $2,500 fine, because we want to make sure we get those copyright infringement issues out of the MLS database. But with that, I'll be available here during the legal panel to answer more questions that you might have. Thank you for.
Well, good morning. I forgot my glasses. My name is John Giardinelli, and I'm Association Counsel here at Pacific West. And what I thought I would do, because giving a lawyer 10 minutes to tell you about 2 days worth of meetings is, well, giving this lawyer 10 minutes to do anything is ridiculous. So I'm going to tell you about a program we're going to have up at Anaheim that's been very popular recently. It's called the brown bag. I don't know why we call it that, because we do one in the morning and one in the afternoon and nothing during lunch. But what we're going to do is literally go through the stuff I'm going to tell you about right now in detail and answer questions. And like I said, it's been very popular. The reason we do 2 is because they sell out so quickly. So if you're interested, also keep an eye on the newsletters, because we're going to be writing about a lot of this stuff, and I know that Phil pushes those newsletters out to you guys. So what are we going to tell you about coming up? New forms coming out in December. Only 2 this time. Nothing really significant. A new team agreement. Why? Because a lot of the teams are doing things verbally, and of course at the end of a termination, it's just like a prenuptial agreement. There is no prenuptial agreement. There's an ugly divorce. And so there'll be a team agreement that CAR will produce. Both Ed and I have looked at it. We both have some troubles with it, but that's okay. We're lawyers. We're supposed to do that. What will happen with this particular agreement is they'll get it out, and then they'll start seeing the kinds of things they need to fix. For example, there's a concern that I have over what they're calling the entity in the team agreement. It's going to be a partnership, or it's going to be a corporation, or it's going to be whatever Commissioner Bell will allow, but it's not no entity. There's also some issues with some of the MLS language that Ed pointed out. So that agreement comes out early December. We'll write about it once we know the drafts are done. The other one is something that I think Ed just alluded to, and that I see in my office, and that is the photography issue. And they're going to come out with a photographic services agreement that will give you some choices, and I'm going to be interested in Ed's comments about it as we go forward and as they finalize that. They're revising 10 forms, a couple that I just want to bring to your attention really quickly. I'm glad I had coffee today so I can talk really fast. They're modifying the wire fraud advisory, which I'm hoping you're using on an absolutely regular basis, because cybersecurity has become such an enormous issue. And what they're going to do is expand that form for use with property managers and landlords as well, because of the wire transfers and all of that. So that form is being modified to expand it to the use in the landlord-tenant. They're going to be modifying the contingency for sale to clean up some issues that have come up there, the seller replacement, the receipt for deposits, and a couple of other forms. There's 10 in all that they're going to be revising, including all 3 buyer representation agreements. I'm going to be talking at length about some stuff. Ed and I are both on legal affairs, and I also get to go up to CAR periodically to meet with June Barlow, the attorney, and to go over some issues with lawyers that do what I do. And it's the area, you've probably heard of it, it's called disclosure. Seems to be about 80–85% of the lawsuits that we defend. And so obviously we're going to be talking about the issues of disclosure, and what I personally see, and I don't know if the guys up here agree, is an expanding duty that seems to be falling on you guys to do more things, more legal obligations, because of a lot of other factors. For example, I hope he talks about it, the uniform advertising guidelines will be coming out on January the 1st. We have written some guidelines. I was holding off today to hear what the commissioner has to say, and I was actually going to send the draft up, because what we did is we took an amalgamation of a lot of different sources, and we're going to give that to you guys through the Pacific West website on October the 30th. I think that's the Monday after next. And the reason for that is I won't be in the office next week, and so we'll want to finalize it and get it out to you. And then, so be looking for that. That'll then help you over the last 2 months get your advertising ready to go by the 1st. Obviously, teams are critical, and we'll be talking about that at the Brown Bag at length. And of course, some stuff that Commissioner was kind enough to send to me, we'll be jumping on that as well. A couple of other issues in terms of what we're seeing out in the field, in terms of the defense that we're doing, is the issue of communication storage. How are you dealing? What is your policy relative to text versus emails? I have a case right now. I'm actually going up to Sacramento to try it on Tuesday. My client had 23 separate attempts to contact the other broker that would have established her innocence. She saved none of those texts. And so you got to hire a slick lawyer to kind of figure out how we can establish that those communications at least took place. And so really, what's the advantage to text? What's the advantage to emails? If you're going to use text, make sure you understand, and I know one person who's going to ask a question, what is the department's view of ephemeral? What doesn't have to be saved? What should be saved? As a defense lawyer, if you think you should save it, save it. However, people that know technology can do that. The other issue that seems to be coming up a lot has to do with disclosures that are made or that need to be made, but the agent no longer is in the office. The agent has moved. The agent's the one that worked on that particular piece of property. So I'm going to go into some of those issues because I think they're kind of important. Another issue, because of some of the expanding technology that's coming out, is when and how to disclose neighborhood issues. I'm going to speak in a second about a new law that some of you might find fascinating on marijuana that goes into effect on January the 1st, but we're going to have, I've already had a couple of grow house issues where somebody rents a house, uses it for growing purposes, and then moves out, and now the seller who didn't know about that use or claims that they didn't know about that use, and how are you going to disclose that? The barking dogs, the issues with the party houses and all of that. So that seems to be, and of course now there are platforms. I can't remember the name of the one. Ed, you remember the name of that one platform? Something neighbor, something or other.
Next door.
Yeah, that one, yeah. I know I should know more. My son-in-law works at Google, but it's terrible. So that issue is we're seeing more and more of that. Some of you watch those shows on TV where everybody goes in with a sledgehammer and makes the house look beautiful in 30 minutes. The trouble with that fad is, of course, unpermitted uses, uses with unlicensed contractors, situations where somebody inadvertently hit a wall that had a bearing in there, and all of that kind of stuff. And so those issues are coming up, and we're starting to see some fixer-upper issues, and how are we going to be dealing with those. My son is a photographer, and he's made me look thin. I love when he takes photos. He can make anyone look. I've seen when a model doesn't pay him how he makes her look. And so that's all fun and that's all well and good. We keep the picture of the slim me on the refrigerator. I think it's trying to embarrass me late at night. But the fact is we're starting to see some issues where people are posting and sending out misleading photos where they've photoshopped out utility lines and things like that. And so that may become an issue, certainly for Ed, and because of the requirement for accuracy of information. The other issue that seems to be coming up a lot and is historical, and we're going to talk about it next week at the RPA class, and that is the issue of dealing with your client. We all have, I have this problem, Ed has this problem, the commissioner certainly does, and that's non-compliant or disagreeable clients. I know none of you have ever had that, but if you do, the question, are we supposed to fire them, or how can we work with them, and how do we document what our files, particularly in this electronic era, when you're texting them back and forth. So that issue is coming up more and more, and we're going to spend some time. And then lastly, this was a great conversation that I had up at CAR a couple of months ago with some really fine lawyers, and June Barlow, your attorney, and that is the issue of how do we, properly vet inspectors, repair people, if we can put in our file those kinds of issues that show we made sure they were licensed, we got good ratings, we did all of those things, is that going to be a way for people like me who defend you to be able to say, look, we did everything we could, and so we had a 2-hour conversation on it. I took a bunch of notes, participated myself, with the things that I knew, put them all down, and we're going to put that out on for discussion. There's some new laws going into effect, not the least of which, of course, is the new advertising law that we'll probably have some questions about today, and that the guidelines will point out. And again, the commissioner alluded to the fact that it isn't just the state law or the regulations that will emanate. We also have Article 12 of our Code of Ethics, which does have some other inconsistencies. And so we're going to cover all that in the article. It's already been written and been vetted by staff, so we'll take that out. Obviously, there's going to be some new laws relating to immigration, HOAs, immigration as it relates to real estate. There's some new laws that have come into effect as part of the sanctuary state set of bills. And then lastly, and then I'll sit down, there's a new Cannabis Act. Not marijuana anymore. It's not munchies anymore. It's a whole nother group of conversations. But these new laws will have dramatic, and already in my view, and probably in some of yours, particularly if you do commercial real estate, are already going to have some dramatic impacts on California real estate. For example, we all know that federal law and state law are not the same. And so how is that, now that we've legalized it in California, but the federal government hasn't come on board, how's that going to impact things like RICO and all that kind of cool stuff, DEA issues and all of those fun things? What's the commissioner going to be looking for in those kinds of things, if anything, or not? What about disclosure issues? What are we supposed to disclose in terms of a house that's been a grow house? Or if you're representing a buyer who's planning on utilizing a commercial property, you're going to need to talk to them about lending issues. I think Phil told me yesterday that LA is actually looking to create a bank to lend money to these dispensaries. Why? Because no federal lender will do that. Cash issues. One issue that I'm deeply concerned about, again, obviously we're interested in the day-to-day issues that you guys are interested in, but then every now and then, like the commissioner with fraud, we get interested in some really serious stuff, and one of those is money laundering. And if you're paying cash for a $5 million building, where did that come from? And so that's going to be some issues that we'll be looking at. And so, again, there's a lot coming on board for you guys. It's as busy as I've ever seen it. I am grateful we have a commissioner like Commissioner Bell. I'm grateful that we have an attorney like Ed working at the MLS who is a broker, who understands what you guys go through and is basically trying to weed out the bad guys for you. And again, one last plug is that most of you have had a transaction with an unethical agent, right? If you do this long enough, that's true. Now, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands because I'm in a good mood and I don't want to be depressed. How many of you who had that interaction with an unethical agent reported them to either the commissioner or to the association so that they could do something about it? Lori doesn't go out looking for trouble, right? Ed doesn't go out looking for trouble. The commissioner doesn't go out looking for trouble. You're the ones that interact with these bad guys. And if you don't report it, then there's no way for us to deal with these people. You have, in my opinion, one of the best, if not the best, professional standards organization certainly in this state. I know, been talking to NAR in the nation, frankly. We've actually sent some of the stuff you guys do to other places in the United States. So you should be proud of that, but only if you use it. Now, the last statistic I saw was about 80% of you will have transactions or have already had a transaction with an unethical agent. Less than 10% of you will file a complaint. So shame on you, right? Shame on us if we don't do that. So I'll leave you with that. We're going to open it up now to questions, probably mostly for the commissioner, probably mostly about teams and advertising, but whatever you want to ask, there's a microphone there. I will ask for one favor, and that is keep your questions respectful. Okay? I was watching TV this morning, and I guess because I've been watching the national news, I have to say that now. Be respectful, and we'll see what we can do to Ed, myself, we're all prepared to answer, hopefully. And if we can't answer the questions, we will make up something plausible. So.
Hi. My question is for the Commissioner. Commissioner, I understand that we have to change our signs come January 1st. We have to put our BRE number. And it has to be as small as the smallest font on the sign. Is that correct? Or as large as the smallest
I would
font?
word it differently. I would word it differently. It should be. It should be something that people can read.
Okay.
Yes.
That being said, we're going to be changing back to DRE in July.
I want to say, for anyone who's worried about that, you can just put license number. You can
just
put
license
DRE, BRE, whatever you'd like, as long as the number's there, and you can put license number.
Okay.
We don't care.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And what's funny is John said, this is going to be fun. And I said, maybe fun for you, but not for me. The other thing I wanted to say, because I heard John say this and it just made me laugh, and I wanted to tell you why the state uses the term cannabis now as opposed to marijuana. When they created the Board of Medical Marijuana Regulation, in the state we like to have acronyms, and so we have DRE, CalBRE. That bureau became Bummer. I'm serious. And people said, we can't have the marijuana group called Bummer. So they changed it to Board of Medical Cannabis Regulation. And then it became cannabis generally, and then they merged this cannabis generally. So anyway, I just want to throw that out. Yes.
This is a question for the commissioner. Every month I read on the DRE site the list of violations that come out throughout the state.
Yes.
So there's sometimes a very long list of code sections cited, sometimes they're shorter, but the ones that I'm very curious about, I know there's trust fund violations and audit violations and a lot of things like that, but I'm wondering, I see the reference to criminal code violations,
Yes.
and I'm wondering, what is the range of these criminal code violations that agents have been involved with?
We take action primarily for violations of the real estate law, but oftentimes we get referrals from criminal prosecutors. Some licensees are convicted of crimes. They range from assault, battery, grand theft, all over the place. Tax evasion, bank fraud. And so when we see those, we take action based on the convictions. And so it's a criminal referral usually that we've moved forward on.
So there's no one frequency of one
No.
more than the other?
Well, we see a lot of drunk driving, like multiple drunk driving arrests. We see a lot of battery convictions. We see fraud convictions. The other day I got a call and it compelled me to write the alert. I can't tell you which prosecutorial agency, but they said they have good information. This is a prosecutor that one or more real estate licensees in the wine country was engaged in rent price gouging. So that's going to be prosecuted. It's Penal Code Section 396. And so we'll take action on that if the person is convicted. And we'll do our own investigation as well. So it's all over the place, really.
Okay.
And then the other thing I wanted to mention on the cannabis is one of the disclosures I think you'd have to make is that it's a violation of federal law. And that even if you follow state law and you give all the right disclosures about the impacts it might have on a particular home or property, if Jeff Sessions has his way, that use might not be able to continue. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Real quickly, there's actually probably so far, and again, keep in mind that none of us up here, nor any of you, know actually how this law is going to fold out. The regulations haven't even been created yet by the new Bureau of Cannabis Control, which I'm sure their regulations will be quite exciting. But there's going to be all kinds of issues relating to disclosures, and probably disclosures we haven't even thought about yet as things come to the forefront. But certainly, if you've ever been in a grow house, issues of unpermitted changes to the construction and issues. There was an explosion Phil told me about yesterday, I think it was in Yorba Linda or this week, where a pot house, it's almost humorous, except it's very sad, obviously, that they were playing around with some oils that were hazardous, and the house exploded. And so obviously those will be fairly easy to disclose, that those things exist, but there's going to be some other stuff. And again, you already know that you have to disclose hazardous material issues and things of that nature, if you know. And so there'll be another question about what are you going to need to know? What kinds of inquiries are you going to need to make? And then if you do get information and you're in a fiduciary relationship, the jury instruction says what kind of investigation then are you going to need to do? So again, a lot of stuff you're going to learn at the same time the three of us learn it, because it's a brand new law that will go into effect first of the year.
Yeah, and I want to just mention the glacial pace at which regulations move forward when you're, especially under the Department of Consumer Affairs, and I don't mean to sound like it is something that grates on me, but it does. They have a review process that's not sequential. It is a process that involves their executive unit, their fiscal unit, their legal unit, their legislative unit, and if any change happens, it goes back to the start again. So that's one of the reasons the cannabis regulations are slower than they might otherwise be. They're actually moving through fairly quickly, but we have two laws that we're having to implement this next year. As you know, one is the reporting of broker associates and our tracking of those, and the other one is the possibility for a petition to come into us where we would remove discipline that's 10 years or older. And those regulations have taken many, many months, and we might not have regulations out until next June because of the pace. And so when I meet with the folks at CAR and they say, well, you should do a regulation, I say, we can get law change through a lot faster than regulations right now. So I just want to point that out. Yes, sir.
How you doing, guys? Good morning, everybody. My name is Vincent Severa. I'm with T&G Real Estate. I am an agent myself, and I'm also the marketing director for our office. We have 750 agents in our office, and I don't say that to boast. I just say that because I have a lot of agents that are looking at me to ensure that they are compliant with signs and business cards and marketing. So they come to me with all their questions. And you had asked, one of you, I forget who it was, who had said, what keeps you up at night? Well, this issue keeps me up right now. And by show of hands, I'm going to ask you guys a question, brokers and agents. How many of you guys are using a website that has IDX? By show of hands. Anybody? Okay, so there's a good amount of people, including myself. Now, in August of this year, we had PWR put out a video on DMCA, which was actually, the video was by NAR, Chloe Hecht, and it pertained to the DMCA registry, which is a registry in which agents who are using IDX feeds or MLS feeds in their websites now must register their site with a designated agent by December 31st, 2017. So this concerned me, including myself, because I have IDX on my personal website. So I went through the rounds. I called my website company, Playster. They had no idea about this. They had no clue. I had actually had to send the video to them, and they sent it to their supervisor. They got back to me in a couple of days and said, well, you know, you're protected. We have a designated on our website, but that doesn't protect us agents. So I went the next step. I emailed Chloe, and she said, well, you know, contact your MLS. So I contacted CRMLS. They had no clue, absolutely. So they said, contact your association, PWR. So I'm glad you guys are all right there within 12 feet of each other, 20 feet away.
Good. Is there going to be a question?
Yeah, there is. Yes. I have to give you the basis first. Okay. So I called PWR, and I hate to say it, they told me the same thing. We have no clue, we don't have no information, so you need to call NAR. So here I am. So my question is, why is there such a lack of communication in this issue? Because as you guys had mentioned earlier, we can be fined up to $150,000 per infringement on our websites. And why is it that they're coming after us as agents when it's the MLS? We have no control over these pictures that are coming from, who knows, from Northern California, from an agent up there. Now, just so you guys know, you have to register your websites on this particular site, on DMCA registry. So what is being done to protect us from companies that are suing agents there was a company that sued Zillow this past year, and they got a lawsuit for $8.3 million because they had over 3,000 photos that were not authorized. So that's my question. What is doing to protect us? Thank you.
Good question for Ed.
Yep, good question. I'll go ahead and take it.
We all just voted. Ed's going to answer this.
Thank you for your question. So what you're referring to, what DMCA stands for, is the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. It came into life in the year 2000, so this is not a new issue. You all should already have DMCA protection on your website. What the DM says is it creates what's called a safe harbor. That if you have a notice on the bottom of your website that says, if anyone thinks there is some type of copyright violation, please contact, CRMLS's website says, legal@crmls.org, and that email will come to us. And you have to register an individual person through the DMCA. What has changed this year is that they're going to an all-electronic, web-based registration process. So for all of you who've already registered and you have this individual on file, you need to go in and re-register electronically. Now, when you're registered with DMCA and you've already done this, right, I get an email for CRMLS from the DMCA guys who are running this about once every 2 months. So I registered for CRMLS back in February because you're getting constant notices when you're already registered about this update. So you definitely need to check with your web vendor. That's the individual you need to go to who's controlling what your website looks like and what the notice provision is. What CRMLS is doing in an effort to protect you is in every licensing agreement we have, and we have 800 IDX web vendors that provide services to you. And we have, like I said before, 17,000 separate websites created by those 800 vendors. Our licensing agreement requires that vendor to create for you a DMCA notice and DMCA process. So that we have that contractually with each vendor. So to make sure your vendor is complying with that, you guys need to check into this. There is good resource and information available at the NAR website. It's very detailed and tells you exactly what to do. The process takes about 2 minutes. It's very easy to do. The next part of that question was, what happens if someone contacts us with an alleged photo? What will happen is someone will send you a letter saying, pay me $10,000 and I'll drop a potential lawsuit against you for copyright violation. You immediately ask them well, first thing you have to do is take down the offending photo. So that comes straight to CRMLS. I can tell you I've been at CRMLS for 2 years and I've had to do this twice. So it's not an issue that is super prevalent. I think they know, because we have the proper DMC notifications up, that we're not a very good target because we have all of the ducks in a row. So in 2 years it's happened twice, and we took the picture down and then there's nothing they can do. But you guys need to protect your own websites because ultimately you're responsible for your own website. So that's something very important to do, and contact your IDX vendor.
Next question.
Hi, good morning. This is for the CRMLS. The new product that you're coming out where you can just put that address in and it populates all the addresses. I wanted to know, is that just for because I use my CRMLS religiously, but I still have clients sending me properties on stuff that's not on there that are on other MLSs. Will those be incorporated as well?
So what's happening is, if you live in we're operating a campaign called itsmybusiness.me, okay? And the concept is the Realtors Without Borders. What you're running into in that situation is, if you're in one of our border areas, an MLS that we do not do a data share with. In this area, you shouldn't have too much of that, because we do have a new data share that just started with Sandicor. I think back in May is when that went live. And to our north, we also started a data share, I believe in July, with the Ventura County group. So vCerts is back in. We already also data share with CLAW, which is in Los Angeles, iTech, which is in Pasadena, as well as some of the desert communities. What I talked about with Cloud MLX and our matrix system, it only gives you access to the 85,000 CRMLS subscribers, plus the people who are in data shares. Right now in our system, we have between 65 and 75% of all the listings in the state, but we don't have the rest. We also could be running into a situation where there is no law that requires an agent to place the listing on the MLS. So there are people who file exclusion forms and they do marketing outside the MLS, which is allowed. And that could also be what you're running into.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning, gentlemen. Alex with Capital Equity Real Estate. Just to the panel, concerning the violation at the bottom of the MLS where you can click on the violation, well, I got one of those. And it was because I put a lender's name on the private remarks for cross-qualification. And I can't seem to get a straight answer from anybody as to why that is. Why did I get that warning?
Okay. We can talk in detail after this, but you probably got a courtesy notice asking for some information. You can put a cross-qualification concept, but it can't be mandatory. So your cross-qualification can only be for the purposes when the seller says, hey, I want to make sure that these potential buyers are coming in and are getting qualified properly because I maybe don't trust some past history. You are not allowed to make that a requirement as far as utilizing that lender. So I can't answer your exact question. I have to look at the actual language. So we can talk about that after, though.
If I can expand on that a bit. So what I do sometimes when I see that on other listings, because I got that warning, is I also click on the violation. Good. And when I get that... So
that's usually how this works.
I am also an enforcer, right? So, okay, so...
Just for your information, you're not alone. What will happen is will violate somebody, and we will find out. Sometimes we'll come in the next day, and that single person has reported 100 other people for that same violation.
They're on a mission. They're on a mission.
Waterfall effect.
So the key will be, we should cite all of you for some ethical violation, and then you'll come in with all the other ethical problems that you guys are seeing.
So the board will answer back, or no, I'm sorry, not the board, but the CRMLS will answer back, and the answer that I'm getting, it is the board issue. So CRMLS isn't even addressing that issue. But I did talk to somebody at the Downey Association, and this is why I'm not getting a straight answer. They told me that you cannot put somebody on the MLS that's not a member.
I'll have to. So we don't do compliance for Downey. So realize with CRMLS we have 37 separate member associations, and we do compliance for about 28 of them. So what you're talking about may be actual information from another association that CRMLS is not in charge of. So again, I can talk to you afterwards because I'm not sure 300 people are interested in the one little issue.
Don't get me started, Ed.
Okay.
Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today.
You.
How you doing? My name's Frank Caceres from Sinaco Real Estate Group, and you touched base on it a little bit. It's about marketing one's property without putting it on the MLS. I think it actually affects all the gentlemen here, and I'd like a little feedback. You gave basically a vanilla answer that you don't have to put it on the MLS. You can sign an exclusion, but what's the, I guess, is there a violation taking place for those that are pre-marketing their property, maybe putting it on Zillow first for a couple of weeks, getting the SCLM signed, and then eventually putting it on the MLS? We all know why it's done. They try to get buyers, maybe double in the property, but what's the overall rule?
Okay, so I can deal with the rule. So the rule is a mandatory submission rule. You're required to place any listing into the MLS within 2 business days of that listing contract becoming effective. That is the earlier of the date on the start date, in paragraph 1, or the last signature required to make it a valid contract. Okay, nice lawyerly answer there. There's 2 things you can do. 1, put it in the MLS, or 2, file a waiver or exclusion form with the MLS so we're aware of the fact that you have a contract. From the MLS's perspective, there's no such thing as pre-marketing. There's either marketing or no marketing. It's kind of like there's no such thing as pre-pregnant, right? If you're marketing, you're marketing. If you're not marketing, you're not marketing. So if you do a coming soon sign, do a bunch of Facebook posts, hold a couple of open houses, my assumption you're doing that so you could sell the house. That would be marketing. And now if you want to do that without a listing agreement, then you're fine. There's no violation. But if you have a listing agreement, that's the event that triggers the requirement for filing.
And even with the initiating the SELM, where the seller, because I've had this happen before, where a seller says, Frank, I'm ready to go. We sign the listing agreement, and they say, oh, you know what, give me a couple of weeks. I want to do some painting, put some carpet, things
So we
like
have an
that.
exclusion form to handle that. So in the olden days, we did have a problem. Last year, we definitely had a problem where the way the computer works in calculating your days on market, okay, the computer is coded to take the first day on market as the first day of your listing agreement, no matter when you put it in the MLS. That's how the computer works. There was a problem with the situation that you just explained, where someone would take a listing, they would file a waiver with the MLS, so keep it out of the MLS, right, which is your right to do. Then they would do no marketing. They would, get photos done, fix it up, stage it, do the things necessary. And then let's say 2 weeks later, when they went to go put it in the MLS, they were showing up with 14 days on market. Because that's how the computer works. So we implemented a new process, a new exclusion form. There's some great resources. You guys actually have a great video on it with Stephen Mead over there interviewing me on how the exclusion processes work. So go to the PWR website to look at it. And we created a form that said, and remember, this is a seller decision, not an agent decision. The seller says, I don't want you to market for a period of time, and that's in the form. You then submit that form to CRMLS, and that's what we check against. So then when you do go to put it into the MLS 14 days later, we have a new technology where you can check a box and you can insert your own on-market date. And then the computer will utilize in calculating days on market from that on-market date rather than the first day of your contract.
Right.
Now I'm going to give you all a warning. We are now requiring web-based submission of these forms. That's for your convenience and mine. That means I just created a database of all of your forms and the day you submitted it that I can now run against the MLS.
And just to be very clear,
Yes.
none of what you said is a violation of the California real estate law.
Right.
What we would look at is whether there were misrepresentations made to the seller, whether there was a breach of fiduciary duty to the seller.
Correct.
Because in many cases, obviously, a real estate licensee will say, look, we can market it better through our own in-house resources, and you shouldn't put it on the MLS. And so we would look at the disclosures, the representations, and then focus on that. But there's no duty under California law to put it on an MLS.
Right.
And from the association standpoint, that's basically the same as that. We all know that Ed and his people have done a phenomenal job dealing with the technical issues of when a seller has made that decision. When we'll jump in is when there's been misrepresentation, and that's really, and we all know that that's not really what's happening. Right. What's really happening is there's been some concealment of some material issue or some information that wasn't properly provided, and what we end up with is somebody actively marketing a property, trying to double-end it, pocket listing kind of issue, whatever you want to call it. And what ends up happening, and where I believe obviously a license issue becomes important and an ethical issue becomes important, is there then is a damage to a potential seller because the property didn't get vetted and therefore probably didn't sell for what it might have sold for. It was basically the basic duty is to put the client's interest primary, and when the realtor puts their own interest primary, we have a problem. Right. Ed has taken care of the technical issues, but we all know that a lot of these coming soon signs really mean call me right now. And it's not just, I'm seeing it a lot in Facebook. And I don't do Twitter. I'm not actually sure what that is, but I see it on Facebook when I stalk my own children to see what they're up to. I'll see the realtors, and they'll be putting stuff in the MLS that's probably a sign violation, an advertising violation, but also I have a question. This baby's coming on the market next week. Give me a call right now. Has that violated his rules and the associations? Has it brought him into the picture? Has it brought the commissioner into the picture? So again, information is power. And you guys got to read those MLS rules carefully, because they say what they say and they're well written. You've got to understand your obligations. What is your expected behavior, which is really what the Code of Ethics and the California real estate law is all about, and then figure out how to best serve your client. And yes, there are legitimate reasons why clients don't want properties in the MLS. That'll become even more interesting next year when we go to the new marijuana all cash deal. Again, it's all about, his job is to protect the public. Our job is to make sure the Code of Ethics is enforced and that all of you and the public are protected. And so if the client's been properly protected and you comply with his rules, I think we're okay.
Well, I encourage the panel to take a closer look at this for policy in the future, though, because while some agents might think it's an advantageous situation to put a property on the market or pre-market, and double-end properties, it's building the growing sentiment of the public that the agent is becoming irrelevant and why are they even needed. But as you all know, because I'm sure you've all appeared in court several times, that the highest number of real estate court cases that have gone to litigation, majority of them are for sale by owner sales where there's lack of disclosure and other issues like that, which makes us very relevant because that's our job, to keep people out of the courtroom. So.
Once people, we just sold 2 houses in my family. My father-in-law passed away and my daughter decided to sell a rental property that she owned. And obviously the bank of dad became involved, and what was not clear to my daughter particularly was how valuable you guys are. Yes. And when I insisted that if I was going to help look at documents and the things that fathers who are in real estate do, I insisted that a realtor be involved because you do so much more than I could ever even dream about. The problem, of course, being you got to let people know that. Yeah. And once they understand your value to the transaction, that you must be at the center of that transaction, just like a lawyer ought to be the center of a litigation, because people that represent themselves are, Lincoln said it best, stupid. You end up with 80-something% of people that start out as FSBOs ending up using a realtor because they're going, I didn't realize this. So I think that's the answer, is better PR, frankly, of what you are, the value that you do bring to the table. At least that's my opinion.
Thanks very much, gentlemen.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Liddell, and I'm with Coldwell Banker, Coastal Alliance. Thank you guys for being here. There's been a lot of conversation, and I don't want to feel like I'm behind the 8 ball, or maybe I didn't know, the final decision, but with regards to photography. One is the issue with drone photography. Sorry, John. John doesn't love me anymore. And the other thing is lifestyle. And being in lovely Long Beach, I do understand the problem sometimes when you see that there's a condo and there's one picture of the condo and then there's 80 pictures of the beautiful, the coastline, and you're going, is that what you see out their front window? And you find out, it's facing the courtyard. But I do also understand that it's important that, we do live in beautiful areas, and that does cause people to want to, to move here. So has there been a decision on those 2 issues?
You want it?
Please share.
Sure. So this is an issue. So in the MLS rules, much like the rules of real estate and the code of ethics, right, we have a truthfulness requirement, okay? And so as part of that truthfulness requirement, there had been a rule in the MLS that said, and it still says this, right, part of being truthful is photographs need to be of the property or from the property or of the homeowner association amenities. So in other words, it's something that transfers with title, right? Here's something you get
Right.
because you're a member of buying this piece of property. And that's what it was limited to. Now here's the great thing about the MLS. We work for you. And so how decisions get made in the MLS is you guys have your board of directors here, other associations may have MLS committees. If you have an idea or a challenge like this one where people were saying, hey, we would like to put in, you know, some lifestyle pictures, right? What's going on in the neighborhood, something like that. So what happened is that idea was brought up through the Rules Committee at CRMLS, and the Rules Committee had recommended a change, which was then approved by the Board of Directors. So this will be coming out with the next rule change probably in December. And that is, we are now adding a sentence to the rule that says you can take lifestyle or neighborhood photographs into the MLS as long as they are labeled as such. Okay, so you know you can put a comment on a photo. Almost none of you do. Okay, but on these photos, you're going to need to say the following picture is not from the property. It's 2 blocks down the street, something like that. Because remember what the problem is. We were getting a lot of complaints from buyer representatives who would walk into a condo, I'm going to use Long Beach, and they had a picture of the Queen Mary where you could see the people walking on the deck. All right? And then you walk into the front door of the condo, look out the window, and the Queen Mary is this big on the horizon. Okay, and now what's happening is that buyer is lighting up that buyer representative. Right, and it makes that buyer representative look bad. Because why'd you take me to this condo that really didn't have a view like I thought it did? And so realize what the MLS is a broker cooperative. That means we need to work together for each other. It's not about just advertising listings. We don't exist for listing agents. Okay, we exist for a cooperation between listing agents and buyer representatives. So that rule came through because we heard what you guys wanted, and that's the decision that's been made.
And I appreciate that, because I'm always making phone calls. Is that really what is out there? And they're going, oh no, we have like a peekaboo.
Right.
With all the
which is
new
like that.
technology, and we always come sort of, even with the communication issues, you know, letters to emails to text, it boils back to a lot of times the same thing. And in this context, it's simple. It's got to be truthful, it's got to be accurate, can't be misleading. I saw a photo the other day, and it basically said, imagine enjoying your sunset from this beautiful patio, but the sun was setting in a different place than it would normally set. So unless the earth
So
kind
you
of
did what
pivoted
you were
on its
imagining because it wasn't that
axis,
property.
that photo was misleading. But the real serious stuff is again, you know, photoshopping out garbage cans and utility lines and all that.
Right.
And again, as I mentioned in the things we're going to talk about at the Brown Bag, is when you start, you're talking, and Ed touched on it, that those neighbor issues, that's becoming a very fertile place for plaintiffs' lawyers to say, well, you sold me the house and you didn't tell me about the this, the that, or the other thing. And again, you know, what does it say on the bottom? Does it still say that, the right to rely? You know, you have a right to rely on what you're telling me. Now, obviously, that right to rely is somewhat dissipated by the fact that I have my own set of eyes. But now we have the Haricki case, which talks about dual agency and dual fiduciary duties and all of those kinds of things. One of the things I'm going to do at the Brown Bag, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it very much, I'm going to put up the jury instruction for fiduciary duty.
That's
and the reason
shock many of you.
Oh, you're not going to like that. Hopefully, it's the only time you will ever see it, because the next time you see it might be on a table kind of like this, and you aren't going to like that part. So, again, you need to understand. It's not what you think the law is. It's not what you. It's the truth, accuracy. You know, back to the same old things Mom and Dad used to tell us when we were kids. It's not. You know, we've kind of. Oh, never mind.
Now,
General Kelly's
and I know
speech
you don't want to
yesterday was
talk
pretty
about
awesome,
this,
Sam.
but I do want to ask that question about the drone photography.
Okay,
Yeah,
drones,
I
two
know.
things.
Yeah.
The FAA, as you know, has regs, and it's just like everything else. They're being developed, as Commissioner said. I know next week at NAR, they'll be updating that for us, and so I'm not prepared to tell you.
Oh.
But the things I've seen so far, privacy issues, issues of accuracy, people that have no clue as to how to operate the drone properly,
Right.
Personal injury issues. So again, it's relatively new, but there are FAA regulations for how and when to operate a drone, and of course, you go back to the same basics for telling the truth.
Well, I think the issue that has been brought up is the actual photography itself. It's saying that we can't, if you take a drone picture, you can't show any neighbors.
That'll get changed with the same rule.
Oh,
So
okay.
now you'll be able to use a drone, and describe, where the drone is and and as long as it's a truthful representation of what's being sold.
Okay.
And we haven't really issued citations for drones unless it is a misrepresentation of what's happening.
But they have taken pictures out of listings.
They had because
For
of
some
privacy
purpose.
issues, right.
Oh, for
Yeah.
privacy
Right.
issues. Oh, not
Yeah.
not on
You wanna say
not
that?
on the property itself, on other properties?
Correct. So again, this is all changing with the technology that happens. Is what happens. The MLS grows, matures, changes, right? So drone photography will be allowed in the MLS.
Okay.
And from a privacy standpoint, the key is my expectation of privacy. I'm not going to share what was just said, but the bottom line is there are
I know
people,
if someone's out in a swimming
there
pool
are
next
people
door,
in their
I understand.
backyards who expect
Yes.
to be able to have privacy,
Right.
and suddenly there's a drone flying over live, and I'm covering up.
Or a picture of them in the backyard.
Yeah.
Right.
In
And
the
so-
MLS to 17,000 websites.
Okay,
Well, no.
thank you, gentlemen.
Again, you got to look at that issue of expectation of privacy
Okay.
along with the rules.
Thank you, I appreciate the
Uh-oh, here
information.
comes our president-elect.
Uh-oh's right.
Get ready.
I'm going to ask the question that I've been asked by no short of 20 of you in this room, who no one's getting up to the microphone about, and it's for the commissioner. I think we thought the commissioner would be the popular one, and Ed, you're the popular one right now.
We still
Poor
have a
Ed.
half hour left. Hit them all with him now.
It's with regards to the new advertising law, and obviously social media falls into that advertising law because it covers digital media. And the way CAR explained it on their PowerPoint is that it also involves Facebook posts and Instagram and all those different things. The way I understand it is it's first point of contact. So I would assume you're doing just listed, you're doing I have a buyer for your neighborhood, you're doing help me find a listing. Those are all first points of contact. So the question I've been asked by everyone in this room that no one's asking is, people have asked me, when you put your post on social media, and if you are part of a team, you have to have obviously your name. Well, your profile has your name. You have to have your license number, you have to have your company, your broker, and your team name if you work for a team. So the question I've been asked is to clarify all of that and explain what the rule really says. And secondly, are hashtags okay? Because many of us in the room use hashtags, the little pound sign, and so is hashtag ABC Brokerage, hashtag the Smith Team, hashtag 0139194 okay? Ooh, he's getting to the microphone. See? You all wanted to know. You all wanted to know.
No, I'm only standing up so I'm not blocked by this podium. I'm also glad that Ed is the popular one today. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. It makes me happy. The answer is we have to read the law. And we didn't write the law. CAR put the law together. We are not going to be putting together a reg on this because of the reg issues, but we are going to be putting together some advertising guidelines. I know John mentioned that you guys have developed your own. We're going to look at your guidelines. We're going to develop our own. We also know that compliance on Twitter is virtually impossible. We also know that some broker names are more than 30 characters themselves. And so, we're trying to look at this from a reasonable standpoint, a rational standpoint, and we're not going to play gotcha. If there's an effort to comply on your part, where there's some, even with a tweet, if you can bring the person to a place where all of the necessary disclosures are made, all the necessary advertising rules are complied with, we're not going to jump down anyone's throat. We're just not. And so it's difficult to answer the question because technically it's required. Every time there's a first point of contact through electronic means, digital means, any other means, you have to have that information there. The number, the responsible broker number if it's a team, and even the responsible broker if it's not a team. You just have to have all that stuff there. And we know that's an impossibility. And Ed and I had this discussion in San Diego, and other folks got up and said, hey, we have a problem. We can't do that. And like I said, we're not going to focus on that immediately. We're not going to be taking action. A lot of people think I have a lot more power than I have. They think I have like 100,000 people out in the streets with citation books. And so we're going to see how this rolls out. We're going to see how this works. We'll have communications with your association. We'll have communications with the California Association of Realtors. But we know that it's not going to be a pure rollout. It's not going to be easy, and there's not going to be any perfection. And that's the problem with all the laws we have. And John, and I'm a recovering lawyer too. The thing is, laws are created by people who don't do practice usually. And then they hand it over to people who regulate like me, and then they say, okay, make certain they comply. But the compliance is hard and sometimes impossible. So what we try to do is work through, around, and through and around the rules, but with the people who are doing the advertising. And if we see a problem, we're going to let you know. We'll write letters. We'll have discussions with John, the association, and other folks. But don't expect to see accusations to revoke licenses when you don't put your name on a Twitter feed or where you put a hashtag. Hashtag doesn't bother us at all. It doesn't
Good.
at all. Yeah.
Can everyone in the room thank him for clarifying that? Because I know you all wanted to know.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Helen Nahar with RE/MAX Real Estate Specialists. One of you mentioned, I'm not sure you really wanted to at the time, but you did use the word social media and you used the word Nextdoor app. We're selling houses in neighborhoods where everybody's on Nextdoor and everybody's talking about everything that's happening in that neighborhood. I, as a realtor, may not be on that Nextdoor feed, so I don't know what they're all talking about. I don't know that the guy across the street from the house that I'm selling or that I'm bringing my buyer to actually runs his car at 2 o'clock in the morning because he's revving up his engine or something, but everybody on the Nextdoor app knew it, and the seller chose not to disclose it. But we're all going to be liable when their baby can't sleep. Or they wake up in the morning and the remains of their cat are all over the lawn because no one told them that there's a coyote in the neighborhood eating cats. Right. So, and I don't want to start the coyote issue. I'm in the kill them side of that, but but I don't want to get into that. But that is now an issue. We don't have access to their neighborhood app, perhaps, and they're going to wake up in the morning and have a problem, and we're the ones that are going to get the call.
Okay, I'm gonna let John answer it after I just make a comment about this. Anyone can sue anybody for anything, and they're looking for a deep pocket, and the easy thing to say is you didn't disclose and you should have known. And the question is, if you have no access to something, how would you know?
But the seller does.
Well, the seller has an obligation. The seller,
I know,
they have the obligation to let the buyer know. And they should obviously let you know if you're representing the seller. And that's going to be a point of the litigation. I want to tell you, I think it's a funny story. It wasn't funny at the time for me. I was a young law student, and I went up to UC Davis, and I sublet an apartment during the summer. And I remember, and the woman was going to Europe, and I said, "Is the place quiet? Because I really need to get sleep overnight." She goes, "Oh, it's wonderful. It's always quiet." Every day, about 2 in the morning, a train went right by. It was right across the street. So that was a failure to disclose.
And I do apologize for the graphic example, hypothetical, but.
Which one, the coyote? Because that's not,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
actually happens all the time.
Yeah. It
I'm
just-
also standing up, not to talk a long time. As I mentioned before, you really touched on two of the kind of, I won't say emerging, but really critical issues that actually then you got to go back to the basics. There's a brand new case, probably write about it in our next newsletter, unless something else comes up, called Jacobs versus Caldwell Banker, and then there's another case that talks about the other side, and it had to do with the dangers on the property itself. Jacobs, basically, the lady knew, the listing agent knew there was an empty pool. She put that in the MLS. She put that everywhere, warning, hey, there's a pool, it's empty. Mr. Jacobs went over. He wanted to see what was on the other side of the wall, so he climbed up on the diving board and it collapsed. The court said that's not the agent's responsibility. She did not know there was a problem and no one told her. But that then also flows into this emerging issue of neighborhood issues. There's an old case, Paget versus Ferris, and there's also the jury instruction, which we're all familiar with, even those of us that haven't quite recovered yet. And that is, it's what you know or should have known. The issue is not, if you know, you disclose it. Ed and I were talking before the breakfast, I've never seen anybody sued because they disclose things too much. The issue really is, should you have known? And that kind of goes into educating your client and saying, look, I'm going to have insurance, pal, you're not. And you better disclose everything that's material to this transaction, because if you don't, and I don't know about it, then you're going to have a problem. The Paget case was a good case because in that case, the realtor had not sold property in this particular homeowners association before, so she truly didn't know what was going on. But I live in Canyon Lake, way away, and if you're a realtor in Canyon Lake who happens to live there, who happens to boat there, who happens to raise a family there and sell real estate there, or Long Beach, if I'm a Long Beach person, I'm going to know more than somebody else. And so the issue of knew or should have known may become more problematic. Yeah. And of course, with this new software that you're talking about, it can be an issue.
It's like Gossip Central.
There's a case, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, that says you disclose facts, not rumors. There's a lot of that comes up in the Megan's Law issue. And so just a lot going on there. That's one of the things I think probably spend a lot of time talking about at the Brown Bag, because again, I don't sell real estate, but from your perspective, if you know it, you disclose it. If you don't know it and you truly couldn't discover it any better than a buyer's agent or the buyer through reasonable diligence, you're probably going to be okay, except your deductible is probably going to get tagged pretty hard. So,
well, the next store can be really, I mean, you find yourself looking at something and then, 20 minutes later, you're still reading it and you go, step away from the computer.
The issue is going to be,
stop
again,
this stuff.
we haven't had a case yet that says you have a duty to go on to those kinds of sites, but if somebody decides under the circumstances you do, more than likely what will happen is the court will write, an opinion, and then we'll go off into what we call dicta, and that's when it gets bad.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Good morning. Thank you for being here, everyone. I'm Carla Lowinger. I'm with TNG Real Estate Consultants. And there is a pervasive issue that I don't know what we're going to do about, and that is the real estate signs that are on every corner. 20, 30, 40, 60, 100, by agents who are saying list for free, or open house with no open house, no arrows. It's just a lot of advertising, which would be great if we could all do that, but some of us choose not to do that because it's maybe an unfair advantage. So what do we do about, if the city says...
Before either of you answer, let me say, we're not here to talk about setting commission rates at a minimum. Okay, I've said that.
Okay.
But there are antitrust implications to those kinds of conversations, and now I've got to put on my other lawyer hat and say we've got to be really careful about that. However, having said that, gentlemen,
what do we, well, the city ordinances, the sign ordinances have been blown out. So the cities, if you were to pick up the phone, and we're trying to police ourselves to create a professional image for all of us. And if we have a few perpetrators who are out there doing this, repeatedly, and the city says, well, we can't manage this anymore, and they
I
won't
know
do anything about it.
In Temecula, which is near where I live, they had a big issue because there were those kinds of proliferations, and the city council, despite protestations from the board of realtors out there, decided, you know what, we're going to create, again, you have to have permission of the property owner to put up a sign, number one. And of course, that means if it's in the public right-of-way, that permission must come from the governmental agency, which means, of course, they can say no signs. So what you do when you end up being sloppy in the manner you're describing is you make it bad for everybody else, because you end up making the city council, who's going to be responsible to more voters than just you guys, and they're going to say no signs in the public right-of-way.
Is there something that we can do as a board to, we don't want to limit our ability to advertise or promote ourselves or our properties, but if city violations, code enforcement isn't managing the situation, and it continues to be a pervasive thing where, they're just signs to nowhere.
Well,
They're
they're not
signs to
going to
nowhere.
regulate content. If they allow signs and they don't limit how the sign, again, usually they can do size, but they can't regulate content because of the First Amendment. But the issue there is going to be, again, usually if it's too much proliferation and it's the kind of city that cares about what it looks like. There's also a safety feature, because if you're looking at signs, you're not looking at the other stuff. I know that city council people worry about that kind of stuff. And so bottom line is, really it's up to the local jurisdiction as to what their rules and regulations are going to be. And if you push it too hard, they'll go the other direction. You mentioned it's a pendulum. The pendulum will swing the other way.
Right, we say something about it, but then it comes back to bite all of us, because we all lose our ability to promote our properties. So something to think about, maybe I don't know. There's not a limit that we can do in this, but how are we going to police ourselves?
Better code enforcement is the answer.
I know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, gentlemen. My name is Victoria Fonseca, and I'm with PWR Realtors. And he inadvertently answered my question before I arrived up here. But I'm still going to allude to it. It's regarding the fact that I experienced an incident recently where I lost a $700,000 listing to an agent who listed it for $100, and he was under his licensure was with OCAR. When I inquired with PWR to find out what the details were, I was told that he was with OCAR, and now we have to deal with OCAR. But this particular agent was also licensed in Pennsylvania, and there where he lived. But he was also licensed in California, and he listed the listing for $100 with the agreement with the seller, such that the seller will take all the inquiries and all the phone calls and do all the paperwork. You inadvertently answered the question when you said we are not here to discuss a commission rate control, a minimum commission rate control. But it's becoming increasingly a challenge for all of us, because this is how we make our living. And now we are seeing commercials on TV, and I'm not going to disclose names, but they are indicating, why use a traditional agent when I can just do your listing for 3%, and you turn the radio on for the traffic report, and you hear another company say, I'll do your listing for 2%, why go with traditional agents? So if the issue of addressing a minimum rate control, not just for standard listings, but also for lease listing, because lease listing involve just
I'm gonna
as much work.
ask to cut it here. This is what I call my 1+3 rule. Antitrust violation carries a $1 million fine and 3 years in prison. So this is the 1+3 rule. So we're not going to talk about other people's or other companies' business plans. In the MLS, we get asked this all the time, and we allow open listings. We allow minimum service listings. We allow someone to put something in for $1. And we have to, because that's the law. So there's nothing really that the association or the MLS can do to do anything to stop or create any kind of environment to slow down or alter those alternative business practices.
And that's been litigated at the federal level. The bottom line is that there's no obligation to charge a commission at all. And so the issue is going to be, it's not going to be about minimum commissions, it's never going to be about minimum commissions. So I've been told by my bosses in the back that we've got time for one more question, so that her hand is up.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, yeah, and I just want to do a quick follow-up to the last point. The key, and I want to add on to what John said earlier, is for you to explain your value proposition. It's how you add value. I've had people, just regular folks, when I go out and speak at town halls, they say, do I need to use a real estate licensee to sell my home? And I'll say, you don't have to, but I sure would. And then I explain, I'm a lawyer, I'm a broker, and I would always use a real estate licensee. And then I explain why. Because they understand the proper disclosures, they know all the forms that need to be done, they can give you information on schools and a whole bunch of other stuff that you'll never learn on your own. And so I think it's incumbent upon you to explain why it is that people need to use you. And I think the really fundamental point is it's usually the largest investment that folks ever make. And if they want to go do this on their own, they're like lawyers representing themselves. They're fools. And so I think that's what you need to do. So, yes, ma'am.
Hi, Phyllis Schmidt with Boardwalk Properties. My question is, and when you spoke, you alluded to a new law about immigration and home buying. Can you tell me where I could find out more information, or can you tell me a little bit about it?
There was a series of laws that were passed and signed by the governor dealing with what are called sanctuary state laws. There's a sanctuary state law, but there's also a bunch of companion bills dealing with employment and dealing with primarily rentals, not with purchases. Purchase is a whole other issue. And so where you can find out that information is between now and December 31st, is to keep your eye on the association's website, because well, there are 800 bills, so we've got to kind of figure out which ones we're going to talk about that are real estate related, and then we'll let you know, obviously in talking with the commissioner, in terms of what kinds of issues are going to be important, talking to Ed. We're going to have to sort of figure out how to get that information to you, but there is a new bill that has become law effective January the 1st that will limit an employer, well, there's two separate laws. One will limit an employer, one will limit a landlord or property manager from cooperation and discussing certain immigration issues with other agencies or asking specific questions about that. So, film at 11.
Thank you.
All right, can you guys join me in thanking these gentlemen again for this wonderful panel? All right, don't leave. I have something really important that we all need to do. How many of you received, by the way, I'm Barbara Betts, I'm so sorry, I'm your 2017 president-elect. I will take over as president in 2018, so I'm excited to serve you all. I need you all to get out your phone. How many of you received your NAR call to action? That's not enough people. How many answered it? That's really not enough people. That entire room should have their hand raised. You received an NAR call to action, which they only do for really, really, really important stuff. And some people don't understand what the call to action does. And what it does when you answer it is you fill out your information in a nice form that NAR gives you, and it sends essentially a letter, email, I don't know exactly how it gets there, to your elected official, telling that elected official that you're against the mortgage interest being changed. How many of you want to keep that in place? Okay, we need every realtor in this room to get out their phone. You all have permission to be on your phone. I need you to text realtors with an S. You all know how to spell it, right? Okay. To 30644. So the phone number you're sending it to is 30644. In the subject line, type realtors. You should get a response back with a link. You'll fill out that little form, put your name and your email and your home address. That's how it knows what legislator to go to. And you're done. And when you get these, we really, really, really need your help in answering them. CAR and NAR do not send these out just to annoy you. They do it because we really need it. You heard Representative Correa talk about it. We really need your help on this to ensure that our mortgage interest is protected. So can you all promise me that you'll do it and you'll go tell 10 other realtors? Post it on your Facebook. If you go to NAR, call to action, yes, you can put it wherever you need to. So we'd like to thank all our sponsors for being here today. Thank you. We're going to call them up for their raffles. Oh, they're just going to call from the back of the room. Oh, they're going to just call people that won? Is that what we're doing? Okay, well, thank you all for coming. We appreciate your time.